Revenge films.
My husband and I have been married for 2 years. We don't have children yet, but I wanted to enjoy the feeling of being lovers with my husband, so I thought it was fine to wait a bit longer. I first met my husband at a joint company drinking party, where we hit it off and our distance closed rapidly. After that, we'd gather with several people to eat out, and in summer we went camping and grew even closer when my husband confessed to me and we officially started dating. I also thought my husband was great, and when we started dating, I was truly happy. About half a year later, my husband proposed to me, and at that time I thought that if I were to marry, my husband was the one, so I immediately said yes. After that, things moved quickly as we decided on a venue, had our parents meet, and despite being chased by very hectic days, we safely finished the wedding ceremony. So I should have been in the midst of happiness. But one day, I caught a glimpse of my drunk husband's smartphone, and from the text I suspected he was having an affair. When my husband noticed I was looking at his smartphone, he immediately said it was a work colleague, but he was clearly agitated and acting strange. But at that point, there was still no evidence. And to balance work with being a housewife, I worked part-time, so I didn't have money to hire a detective. That said, it wasn't something I could consult my parents about, and saying my husband might be having an affair just a few years into marriage was something I couldn't consult colleagues or friends about either, leaving only frustration in my chest. After that, I carefully observed my husband, but perhaps because I looked at his smartphone once, my husband didn't easily show his tail. Then one day, a colleague's child got a fever, so she asked if I could work overtime in her place. My husband and I don't have children, and we had no plans that day. I immediately said okay and decided to work overtime instead. Perhaps because I always properly cook dinner and pack lunch in the morning, my husband didn't complain about that at all. He just said he understood. So I stayed at the company and worked overtime. I was told it would probably go past 9 p.m., but around 7 p.m., my colleague returned saying she'd switched with her husband. That said, she was still worried about her child, so we decided to do it together quickly. And with 2 people working on the overtime, it finished in no time. My colleague thanked me many times, saying it really helped. And we parted with her saying she'd treat me to something next time, but I told my husband to get his own food. So I headed home thinking I'd ordered delivery of something I liked while taking a bath. When I arrived home, the lights inside were on, so I entered thinking maybe he'd bought food instead of eating out. Since it was overtime after a long time, I wanted to shower right away and approached the bathroom when I heard voices. Moreover, 2 people, one being a woman's voice. I reflexively returned to the dark entrance and turned on the light, and was stunned to notice shoes I'd never seen before. Hearing about the overtime, my husband had recklessly brought the affair partner into this house and was taking a bath with her. Whether fortunate or unfortunate, the 2 didn't seem to notice I'd come home due to the shower sound, so I had a sudden idea, brought a heavy table from the living room and placed it in front of the bathroom door. Then I sat on the sofa and took a deep breath. Even pretending to be calm, my heart was pounding and my hands were trembling. But I had no intention of forgiving my husband, so I steeled myself and picked up my iPhone. After a while, my husband and his affair partner seemed to emerge from their fun bath time, and the door was rattling, but naturally wouldn't open.
Hey, what's going on? It won't open!
I heard my husband's panicked voice and the affair woman saying, "No way, right?" Then I stood in front of the door and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were in there. I was rearranging the room." Then I heard my husband in a clearly agitated voice saying things like, "Why are you here?" and "You're already home?" Beside him, his affair partner was saying things like, "You said she was working overtime so she wouldn't come home," and "How are we supposed to get out?" So when I said, "I'll move the table now, so wait a moment," my husband shouted, "Wait a minute!" I could hear commotion from inside the bathroom, but unfortunately, there was no window leading outside that a person could pass through. So I audibly said, "Heave-ho," while moving the furniture, and told my husband, "You can come out now," and only my husband came out while hiding the affair woman.
You're early. I thought you'd be much later,
he said while trying to hide his panic, and somehow tried to get me to go into the living room. He was probably thinking of getting the affair partner out through the entrance without being caught in that time. So when I obediently went into the living room, my husband looked obviously relieved. So, sorry to disappoint you while you're so relieved, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law are over there, you know. When I said that, my husband's eyes widened as he said, "What?" At the same time, I heard a "Whoa!" from the entrance direction. After a while, my in-laws brought the affair woman to the living room. "There was a woman trespassing in someone's house, so we caught her." My husband and his mistress seemed to realize everything had been exposed and were stunned. Actually, I was anxious about whether I could question them without being shaken against two people. So I called my in-laws who live nearby, explained the situation, and asked them to come no matter what. Then my mother-in-law, who has an exceptionally strong sense of justice, said, "I'll come right now," and came in just a few minutes. And she quietly entered, listening to the conversation, then waited at the entrance so my husband's mistress couldn't escape. From there, my mother-in-law's anger was more tremendous than mine, and she bombarded them with questions at a furious pace before I could even ask. Not only was my husband already pale-faced from his mistress being exposed to me, but learning that his parents had witnessed everything seemed to drain all his will to make excuses. His mistress was crying and apologizing to us, but my mother-in-law said, "In the brief moment when my daughter-in-law was working overtime, the tears of a rotten woman who could get intimate with an affair partner in the home bathroom have no effect whatsoever," she said sharply, so the mistress fell silent and hung her head. Pushed by my mother-in-law, I thrust divorce papers at my husband in front of me and declared I would claim alimony from both of them. Hearing divorce, my husband suddenly changed his attitude, saying the only one he loved was me, and that this relationship was just for fun. Then his mistress exploded in anger. While saying, "I can't be made a fool of in front of the wife," she confessed and spilled everything about the affair with my husband, and they started a huge fight. However, my father-in-law immediately shouted, "That's enough," in a loud voice, and it fell silent. After that, my in-laws took my husband back to their home and apologized to me, saying, "We're truly sorry." I liked my in-laws, but what my husband did was truly shocking. And I said I didn't have confidence to continue the marriage without suspicion again. After that, my husband signed the divorce papers under my in-laws' supervision. My husband finally seemed to realize what he'd done and bowed deeply to me, saying, "I'm sorry," but it was already too late, right? His mistress kept resisting to the end, saying, "I can't pay this much money." But when the lawyer my in-laws found calmly said, "Then we'll have to garnish your wages, won't we?" she agreed to pay as if deflated. After that, my husband apparently received a virtual disownment declaration from my mother-in-law, who was disappointed that he'd betrayed such a good wife as me. For my husband, it might have really been intended as just play, but the fact that I was made a fool of and looked down upon doesn't change. And I think he's regretting now that the price of playing with fire was high, but I won't sympathize.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.